This is the Best of the Week on Relevant Radio.
Talking how to teach kids to pray. Joining us for this segment, Kim Morgan, Catholic wife and mom, licensed independent clinical social worker, joining us from outside St. Louis, Missouri this morning. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning, Glenn.
We can invite our kids to learn to appreciate the help. It starts out, I think, for Sarah as well as Kim, when the kids are little, probably one of the first things is to teach them to pray and give thanks for their food. Did you find, Sarah, that's how it went too?
Yeah, we got to start with a lot of prayer when you have little kids. We need a lot of prayer. And, the easiest thing just from your own childhood memory is just to start with grace at meals, because it just is so natural, kind of flows off, especially if you have that kind of experience growing up. If you don't, it's still very easy, just bless us, O Lord, and you just go for it. Even with, we have the 1.5-year-old, she's not saying any prayers, but we're getting, we just get her to do the hand slap. We do, we're doing the sign of the cross, and at the end we slap our hands, and she knows, okay, we're putting the hands together. So just little things by little, just to get them started so they understand this is part of the routine here, guys. This is what we should be thinking about during the day.
And Kim, do you find that kind of prayer before meals a good way to kind of start kids on that route?
I definitely think so. It's one of the most natural times to pray is to give thanks before food. And it's one of those that we typically in cradle Catholic households have learned how to pray before a meal. Now, the interesting thing is transitioning from being a young adult where you might be living by yourself, you might not think about praying before your food, you may have a job where you're eating in a more public situation, and to have that self-discipline to teach yourself to do it so that then when those kiddos come along, you're ready and able and comfortable to pass that tradition on. Glenn, I went to a retreat a while back, and the priest was telling us about how many times a day we should pray. And he was like, 5 or 6 times. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, I pray when I get up in the morning and I pray in the evening. Like, that's twice. I thought I was doing pretty good. But he actually expanded upon that and said it's those meal prayers that count. So you eat 3 times a day. You get up, you go to bed, there's 5 right there. Can you add in 1 more and make it 6 throughout your day and make that your more personal prayer? And I thought, how lovely is that it does count. It is a relationship with Christ. It is something that we need to do every day. And teaching our kids about that intermittent prayer throughout the day is very important. And that's why I think the Catholic schools that are doing the Angelus at noon have something way ahead of the rest of us, because they're pausing in their day and they're talking about the importance of this relationship with Christ. They're teaching young people about this relationship. And it's not just about the relationship, it's also about how we communicate. So, for example, when I was little, my mom would like to talk on the phone to her mom. Well, it looked so fun. I really wanted to be like my mom. So mom would put the phone up to my ear, and grandma would ask me questions, and I'd nod, and I'd think it was delightful. But I wasn't saying anything. I didn't communicate back to grandma. But mom taught me. Mom gave me the script. Say hello to grandma. Hi, grandma. Tell her how you doing. I'm good. Tell her what you did today. I played in the sandbox. Okay, say bye to grandma. Bye, grandma. And honestly, that is a parent's role to model and to script what our children should be saying and should be doing in prayer with Christ. So we learn it maybe with grandma on the phone, but we imitate it then with mom or dad at the breakfast table, at bedside, at noon at the Angelus, in the car on the way to school, in the car on the way home from school, maybe in our bus ride home from school. We're trying to avoid just talking to people. We are kind of spent for the day and we're tired. As middle school, high schoolers, we might just find that moment in prayer to sit quietly on a bus and reflect on our day and talk to God about it. Our parents are great models of this. And Glenn, I've leveled up. I'm a grandma now. So now, as a grandma, I have even more interest in figuring out fun ways to make prayer happen in my grandson's life. How am I going to guide him spiritually? His mother and father are great Catholic parents already. They're going to be superstars going into this, but I can only add and enhance his spiritual life as grandma. when I get this right. So I am all about the quest to find the new adventures to help him to pray and enjoy it and love it and fall in love with his relationship with Jesus.
Oh, grandparents have such an important role in really helping the child's faith life develop, maybe nowadays more than ever. That's excellent. Hey, we talked about little kids getting started with meal prayers, but I want to talk a little bit about bedtime prayers as well. And as little Glen learned how to pray, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. And, you're just saying that completely by rote as a really little kid. And then I remember being old enough to think about that. And that didn't help me fall asleep. That kept me awake a little bit longer.
Indeed. Some of it's a little bit scary how serious they were about teaching us these prayers.
Oh.
I'll tell you another very interesting and fun way to do it with kids is if you can get little books or games or flashcards. They sell all kinds of things that teach them the prayers and that have pictures that go with it, that tell the stories of where the prayers came about. And, the story of Fatima is such a beautiful prayer. And we have a prayer of Fatima. And letting our children know that these are not just made up words, but they actually come from the historical nature of Christ and Mary being on this earth, and there are spiritual leaders in our Catholic faith. And I think sometimes as kids get older, they'll know the prayer already, but when they hear the history behind it, it has a lot of depth and meaning. And I think sometimes that really helps a young person, too, to feel like, okay, this is worth doing because it's got clout behind it. There's really some strength in how this prayer developed and where it was formed and why we say it. And I think sometimes we neglect the idea that our kids can actually start taking on some of that history and understanding, especially elementary school, middle school, high school. They start to really want to know, why is this important? And I think we can do a good job of explaining some of that to them now and helping them to really feel that foundation is sturdy and strong in their prayer life.
Is it important to set the environment for prayer when we're teaching kids to pray? We talked about with Sarah and the really little ones, clapping the hands together after doing the sign of the cross to kind of get in the mood for that, or bedtime, of course. And, as far as that nighttime prayer and a bedtime routine, I know the bedtime routine, I was kind of the captain of that in the household, and that was fun when the kids were little. And I know the routine kept getting longer and longer and longer. And of course, on the little kids' part, it was to stay awake longer. On my part, it was fun. So we kept adding things. And then if you did something fun, you had to keep doing that, and you add something else fun, you never subtracted anything. And so I suppose that played into how they got older and bedtimes were later, just because the routine got so long. But I do recall praying with my younger one when she was about 8 when 9/11 happened. And we would pray that they would find Osama bin Laden and the bad guys. And then that they would become Christian too. And so she'd ask about that, like a few days or weeks into it, have they caught him yet? What are they doing? Are they just sitting around watching TV? Why aren't they looking for him? And, but we'd prayed for quite a long time that they would catch Osama bin Laden and the bad guys and also turn them into Christians. And 9-10 years later, when they finally caught him, I had to track her down wherever she was at that point in life and, have that little chat. Do you remember when? And they finally caught him. The right environment, though, to get our kids in a prayerful frame of mind.
The right environment is important, and it doesn't always have to be quiet and candlelit and with a kneeler and a focus on the crucifix. Sometimes the right environment happens by habit. My son now and my husband, they drive to school and they pray the rosary every day on the way to school. So when I drive my son to school, there's this natural feeling in the car that at some point he's going to say, "Mom, do you want to pray a rosary with me?" And the reluctancy is big and deep in this mother to pray the rosary on the way to school because I am watching traffic, I am tired, I probably haven't had enough coffee, and I just am a little bit hard to get motivated. But I always say yes. And once that first prayer has been said, we are off to having the most beautiful, delightful prayer time with each other. So that environment of being in the car sometimes is what it takes because I'm there. There's nothing else going on. He has my full attention, and he's clever. He knows exactly what exit on the road it'll take to start the rosary to finish in time. And he won't start a minute before it, and he won't start a minute after. I always know exactly when he's going to ask me. But the flip side of that is that's a very dedicated time. It's a very long prayer. It's something that we commit to. But I have talked to other parents that they have a nightly routine that everybody has dinner, they clear the table, and they know that they have to report at 8 o'clock for a decade of the rosary. Now, that doesn't take an exorbitant amount of time. But everybody knows to build their schedule around 8 o'clock. And now somebody's going to want to ask, well, what about sports? What about choir rehearsal? What about this at school? Sure, all those things happen. This is a young family. They have control over their kids' schedules. They can do it at 8 o'clock. That's their plan. Each family has this beautiful opportunity to build the plans for themselves. And that's that dedicated time that you're talking about. That's what makes family life so intimate and so beautiful and so fun for kids. And we can make prayer life a whole lot of fun. There can be treats involved. There can be games involved that revolve around prayer, and certainly having the kids' own manipulatives, whether it's a book or a rosary or a special toy they get to have during that time. It's always important to make this a joyful occasion and not a forced one on young people.
Well, I don't know about you, Glenn, but I'm just really excited that you don't have to have a kneeler and candles, because that's going to be problematic for my boys. They're going to do something
fire,
with the
Mom.
Exactly. I'm glad we can kind of set our own surroundings. That sounds much more comfortable.
Oh, they'll be interested if fire's involved. Hey, our faith has so many beautiful, well-written prayers, right? So many things that we can do, whether it be the rosary or just so many different things. But as we started talking about, teaching the kids, it's kind of like talking to grandma on the phone maybe a little bit. How important is it to teach our kids to kind of have that running conversation with the Lord throughout the day, to know they can just talk as they would talk to a friend?
Exactly. It's about communication and relationship, building those two together. And sometimes we have the things, how was your day? It was good. Da-da-da. What'd you do? Oh, I did this. That's our rote prayer. We say these things by memory. We answer grandma's questions by memory. Sometimes we teach our kids, I think especially at nighttime, when we have that bedtime routine, to let it open up and let the kids pray for what's on their hearts. You'd be amazed if you ask them what happened at school and what do you need to pray for. They are the most thoughtful, kind, considerate people on the earth, as little kids looking out for their classmates, praying for their other friends' struggles and not their own. So teaching them to pray from the heart, teaching them to build that relationship with Christ is one of the most beautiful gifts we can give kids. Sometimes as adults we feel awkward teaching it. We have to get over ourselves and put it forward to them and let them start building those relationships.
And teaching them to pray for other kids too. That's a good one. Hey, Kim, thank you so much for your time. Just encouragement for all to keep teaching kids to pray, and keep praying ourselves as well.
Like what you just heard? Share it with your family and friends. And thanks for listening.